Civilization Cycle interviews experts and individuals who understand the intensifying cycle of economic, societal, and government upheaval, so you can stay ahead of the changes in our world and keep your family safe. Fortunately for us, we can recognize that we're at the precipice, a point in history where we can all see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us. So let's start the conversation, and welcome to the show.
There could be shortages or something, and you do come down into that situation where you can't get to a store, but you got some like snakes that are just frozen out there that have stopped moving because they're reptiles, or you get the iguanas, free meat for you. And I would encourage you to try it in our day and age right now to see what you could possibly wild forage, because a lot of people won't touch that. But the iguana, seriously good meat.
But this is what I thought was interesting. Look at this all the way down right next to Guatemala, a severe cold front. That's what they're calling it. It's probably going to get like 40 degrees for them, but that's a big deal.
Yeah, our world has definitely moved into a different era and as quickly as a week. And I was looking on our feed over at Civilization Cycle on X, and somebody was asking Trump, are you going to lower interest rates, and will the Fed listen to you? And he jokingly laughs and says, yeah, ha ha ha. So I have actually 3 Fed stories before I'd even seen that. So the fire cost right now with the new fires that have just blown up into 10,000 acres near Los Angeles and Santa Clarita, it's well over $600 billion right now in terms of damages. And this is going to go well over $1 trillion by the time it finishes through LA here. And currently they have $24 billion for insurance premium coverage on that. So who's going to cover that? The same with the Federal Reserve. When you look at the FDIC insurance program, only currently has enough to insure 1.3% of all deposits in American banks. India has something very similar going on with its insurance program, but they have 1.5% coverage in India of all the bank deposits. If they were to fail, only 1.5% would be bailed out. And then I was trying to use the RTP function, which is a payment system. I couldn't use Zelle. I needed to pay somebody in Hong Kong, and they had a branch in the United States of HSBC. So HSBC, you cannot use Zelle, you cannot use Venmo, you cannot use pay to person. They use what's called RTP. So I called my bank and I was like, hey, I need to activate the RTP function. And they're like, we don't know what that is. And I said, well, it's the FedNow account wallet. What's so strange talking about the Treasury, the FedNow account wallet's active around the rest of the world, but it's not active in the United States yet, which makes me scratch my head. Okay, that's open and active in Hong Kong to receive deposits, but why can't we use it in the United States ourselves? So there's a lot of things going on, and this great white rain has returned with the massive blizzards across Texas and Louisiana. There's more snow in Louisiana right now than New York and Alaska. If you can believe that, over the last 10 days, there's been more snow in Louisiana and near Baton Rouge, and these sort of Bourbon Street areas have more snow than Alaska got in the last 10 days, and more than New York. So, you're looking at Florida Panhandle blizzards. Everywhere you look, the apple cart's being upset. And this great white rain that has returned after 130 years to the Southeast U.S., we're starting to see the changes, and the excuses they gave us for global warming just aren't going to fit this. Blizzards in Florida, blizzards in, places in southern Louisiana there, New Orleans with a blizzard warning. That doesn't make sense to what we were told. And Ransom, I see you zooming in on a map there. That's my slow to do introduction. Thank you everybody joining us tonight, and thank you for everybody supporting us on buymeacoffee/civilization cycle. Going to be an exciting show. Ransom's got a ton of material lined up for you. So Ransom, take it away. And aloha from Taiwan. It's going to be 70 degrees today for those of you freezing your buttocks off in the U.S.
Well, that's pretty warm. It's sitting at a nice 22 for me right here, and we're way down by the border. So we're getting a little taste of what Florida and even Mexico is getting right now. So let me put that map back up, and you can see down there in the Gulf of America along the Mexican coast, there's a severe cold warning, cold front. And actually all over the United States right now, there are warnings, as you can see on that map, icing, snow, freezing deep into Florida. And as you were bringing up, everybody's freaking out like global warming, but check this out. I found this on Twitter here. It says February 1895, very similar system rolled along the Gulf Coast. It was just a little further west, but it dumped more snow than this one. So you got 28 inches in Beaumont, Texas, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 22 inches. Houston, Texas had 20 inches. So you could just see that's a lot of snow. And it looks like we're hitting this, short cycle, which might be part of a large cycle to keep coming. And I don't know if you saw this, but there is wind approaching the UK close to a Category 4 hurricane. So they have warnings all out in the UK as well. Let me get back on that map. But literally everywhere. Life-threatening cold to expand southward across the nation, impacting 235 million. That's what, 2/3 or more of the U.S. population underneath life-threatening cold weather. And here's the chill map for you guys. And if you see those little pockets down in Florida, they're going to get cold, and that's where the warnings are at there in Florida too. All around Tampa, Orlando, all of that stuff is getting cold weather advisory for freezing. And then, of course, if you have craft, there's all kinds of winds. And then you go over to the West Coast, a bunch more fire weather for everybody. But this is what I thought was interesting. Look at this all the way down right next to Guatemala, a severe cold front. That's what they're calling it. It's probably going to get like 40 degrees for them, but that's a big deal. And then here's one all the way from Texas to the Yucatan, and it says cold front severe. And even where I'm at, which is usually warm, I mean, we do get cold. They have a cold weather advisory here. It's dropping down to the tens and maybe single digits, and negative degrees in the mountain areas. We've had that for the last week. So everybody's getting their chill on. Let me find this. It's about the...
and if anybody's out there hunting iguanas or pythons, this is the perfect time because they're just going to be laying there. So, there's tons of recipe. Now, don't laugh. Iguana is quite good meat, actually. So the pythons as well, too, if there's a certain way to prepare certain types of snake meat. So if you're down in Florida or in some of these areas where you get a lot of reptiles and sort of things, it's kind of going to be a nice meat foraging type of environment here of a lot of creatures that are very difficult to run. Yeah, I mean, you got to use 22s to hunt the iguanas. They're tied up in the trees. They're fast. They're down near the water. They take off. But there's a couple of channels I've watched through the years here. Deer Meat for Dinner is one of them, guy down in Florida. But they were down getting a bunch of iguana, real big ones, like super, 3 foot long ones, and doing all kind of recipes and things with it. But there's definitely meat source. So, if you're thinking that there could be shortages or something, and you do come down into that situation where you can't get to a store, but you got some like snakes that are just frozen out there that have stopped moving because they're reptiles, or you get the iguanas, free meat for you. And I would encourage you to try it in our day and age right now to see what you could possibly wild forage, because a lot of people won't touch that. But the iguana seriously good meat. So please give it a try. If you find any iguanas falling out of the trees, just, get them on the barbie and then you're good to go.
Not to mention those big anacondas and pythons that are invasive species. So as a matter of fact, You're not going to get in trouble for eating those. And think about that. One of those snakes would fill up a freezer full of meat. So, if you're not on the, picky eating end of things, that's a lot of free meat. If you can wrangle that thing. Be careful. They are strong. But in this cold weather, not so much. They're just kind of like a big roast waiting for you to grab it.
Ransom, if I could interject there, they do pay you by the foot for the snakes, those invasive Burmese pythons.
Right.
You can get a permit from the state of Florida. Anybody can. Me and Ransom can get it. And even if you're just driving down the road just one random day and you have a permit and you get it, so you get a 12-foot long python, they pay you by the foot. Whatever you are, even if you're just a single person who gets just one snake a year, they will still pay you by the foot to try to remove those, because the amount of habitat destruction and just absolute devastation in the ecosystem from these pests. This is a great time to try to, nature's giving us maybe a foothold or a foot through the door there to try to remove some of these pests that are otherwise unremovable. But maybe this cold's going to be a blessing. Maybe it will, because those Burmese pythons absolutely need to be removed. One female can drop, 30 eggs in a clutch. And they all hatch out and whoosh, there they all go. Got 30 more big, huge pythons that need to be eating. And there's millions of them down there. They're uncontrollable. So paid by the foot. If you're looking for a new job, move to Florida and wrangle up some pythons.
That's a pretty good deal to get paid and get free meat. Everything's about to change. And I just wanted to say one thing about these freezes and fires. I know they're devastating to humans, but as far as nature goes, this is weeding out the weak animals, which leaves only the strong animals to survive. And there will be an explosion on the next cycle of better, healthier animals because all of the sickly animals. And think about this. You're probably going to get to enjoy a spring without so many bugs this year. All through the South, I'm not a fan of the bugs, but this always reduces their numbers a lot. So if you're out there cleaning up your properties, getting rid of brush and piles of wood right after this freeze, you'll get rid of most of the eggs from everything to parasites to the things that attack your gardens. So, those, what do they call them? Squash bugs. They always hide in debris, and that's where they come out. So if you clean up that debris this year after a great freeze or a great fire, you're not going to have bugs. And that's actually a good thing for preparing food this coming spring. But I have a feeling that the cold may last a little bit into the spring this year. You never know. We might get a heat wave in response. But things are shaking up from weather to everything that in civilization. We're truly upon a civilization cycle. And you were mentioning a minute ago, which is something that I brought up before Trump got elected, that the way our system is now with the Federal Reserve, Trump really can't do nothing about that. And they kind of gloat at the Federal Reserve about doing their own thing despite whatever the U.S. government wants to do. However, Trump may be biting with some teeth this time. A lot of people laughed at that comment about him asking the Treasury to do something, which is in effect the Federal Reserve. But he also signed an executive order banning central bank digital currencies in the U.S. And not only that, I don't know if you saw him talking about Spain the other day, but he was pretty much kind of threatening BRICS nations that they would do better to stay with the U.S. Than, join any kind of BRICS alliance, because he's going to tariff any country that is a BRICS nation, which is half the world right now, approximately, as far as business and trade. And all across that you look, I'm feeling like Nostradamus again. So he has signed an executive order to go after the cartels as terrorist organizations. And I've been watching different politicians from both ends of the aisle using the same term, which is usually predictive programming, that they are going to wipe the cartels off the face of the earth. And people are asking, well, what does Mexico have to say about that? And somebody was joking. I saw one of the guys joking about what are they going to do about it? They can't even provide clean drinking water to their population in the second decade of the 21st century. So they're not really going to do much. And when you hear the politicians, when they respond to like, what if Mexico doesn't like that? They're all pretty much saying the same thing, that the U.S. doesn't care. We're going after them. And that is a prediction I made, that we would have combat operations along the southern border over here in the Western Hemisphere. And not only that, it brings up new problems. It may be good in the long term, as far as how many people are dying in the U.S. They get poisoned by things that may or may not come across the border. But this is actually going to hurt China as well. As you know, a lot of the products are coming from there that are being transported across the border here. So I even heard one guy there, when he was signing executive orders, asked if it was likely we would be sending special forces into Mexico. And Trump responded, you never know. It's possible. Because, you know, he's one of those guys that in the past has said, why would I tell you what we're going to do? I'm not like the other people that tells everybody on the news before we do it, so they know when to hide in the tunnels and when to go hide. He's not going to do that. So all of those facilities, and I'm going to throw a woo-woo out there. What if the whole time
I love the woo.
Biden and Trump are on the total same page? Biden set up certain circumstances for Trump to fix. And one of those is, you remember a while back, I showed an article on one of our shows about how Biden was investing into these AI data centers to collect massive amounts of information. And now Trump is now saying we are going to be the capital of AI and cryptocurrency of the world. And guess what? He's going to be doing the same thing with the same program, which is setting up these giant data centers on federal land using the water off the federal land. And, you know, a lot of people were talking about how they couldn't get water on those fires out in California. It's because it's all been diverted, used for other things. That not really the data centers. I'm not saying that. But the fact that all of the reservoirs were full and they didn't have the ability to use them, they weren't ready. It seems like, I'm not going to say a setup, but at least a massive amount of incompetence is now ready to be fixed. So we're going to have, like Trump said, a small golden age of transformation. How that'll work out in a decade, I don't know, because you have to remember, similar actions happened when we went into the Middle East, and necessarily and inevitably, we're going to have blowback and collateral damage, which is what causes that blowback. And this is going to throw a lot of chaos in the food industry. So everybody's about to redo their contracts. It's all up for grabs right now. How it lays out, I don't know. You know, you have to say that he is doing a lot of promises that he said he was going to do. He went right into signing executive orders for that. So you kind of have to wait a little while, so to speak, for the empire to strike back, right? I don't think that they can fix it all by themselves because there's too many working parts. And a lot of that is weather related. And there's a lot of egg on the faces of the global warming right now. And even the social media people are pulling back on the censorship of the alternative ideas and data because they have no choice. You know, when you're seeing Florida and New Orleans having blizzards, it's kind of hard to convince people that the planet is burning up. The only people hot right now are in Australia.
Yeah, and that Illuminati term, the golden age, there's no such thing as a small golden age. It's an age, the age of ages. Come through, it could be the age of Aquarius, the age of Sagittarius, the age of Taurus, the age of Leo, when the Sphinx was created 10,000 years ago. So the age, the golden age, ages are quite long. They're 2,000 years. So for 1,000 years, or the golden age, for whatever they want to term it this time, for 2,000 years, it is what it is. Nothing small comes this way. But if I could, swing back to what you were talking about, that article, no central bank digital currencies here for the United States. Okay, what's the other option then? They're going to have to use an existing protocol. And they're probably going to have to derivatize. As we've seen, I was watching Catherine Austin Fitts the other day, and they were reading the prospectus from BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. And it was in the wording, they were laughing, and they couldn't stop laughing as they were trying to, well, it's going to try to mimic the price of Bitcoin. They're going to try to realize the price. They're trying to stabilize. They're trying to mimic. They're trying to. So when you look at it, it's really a derivative contract. So they can spin money out of nothing based on that. But at the same time, if they're going to use RippleNet or XRP, Stellar Lumens, that's already a pre-existing protocol that was slated, at least in a lot of documents I had read from the Banks for International Settlements, the SELA project. It dovetailed all of the individual projects that were out in there and kind of wrapped them into one. So if you're looking at mBridge, which was Saudi Arabia, China, I think it was United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and there was another country in there. So they were running as an autonomous, like one unit. Okay, that would have been, those 6 or 7 would have been encapsulated, and that was one of those that would have been captured into the whole blockchain protocol for the Bank for International Settlements, moving out on the different layers that they were going to use. And they never said which distributed ledger they were going to use, but there's really only one. There's only one, Ripple. That's it. It's always ever been. And when you say things have been fictitiously put the way they were to keep them, let's say, on the back burner, like this entire CFTC thing, never giving us enough regulation in the crypto world to understand if something was illegal, was it a unsecured offering, what was it? Was it a commodity? Like that, all that XRP traction was put on the back burner until it's needed right now. And suddenly Gensler's gone and they bring in a bunch of new people who are super pro crypto, because that was the whole thing. And I'll tell you my personal story, which really made me think about a lot of this stuff earlier in the last day or so. So a friend of mine helped me out, and I wanted to give him back money instead of the things they gave me in terms of physical things. I thought, all right, I'll give you back the money. So I wanted to just use my wire transfer service from my bank, and then just simply transfer money over. Impossible. HSBC does not use Zelle or Venmo, which are two popular ones in America. Those are American native bank ones. So you can use those all within the US. Now, Hong Kong banks, not a chance. They're not intertwined in that. So first, that was an unknown for me. I thought every bank on the world used Zelle. I thought they were all interoperated until I understood that when you use Zelle, Bank of America steps in the middle and controls your money until it's delivered to, and JP Morgan as well, until it's delivered to the next. So if something were to happen in that middle transaction, Bank of America owns your funds. Well, even though it's with Zelle, it left their bank account, Bank of America captured it, it's being transferred through the Zelle system, and until it hits the deposit in the next thing, you gave your money to Bank of America. Okay. But then they had this pay-to-peer thing, because I have a business, so I was going to try to pay for my business, use my business account, send the money, think it would be easier. And lo and behold, the only thing that currently HSBC, which is a Hong Kong bank, can use in America is RTP. And that's just a rapid transfer protocol. And I was like, all right, I haven't really heard of this RTP before. So I had to activate it in my bank because it wasn't activated. And I called up a bank and they're like, we really don't know what this is. And I'm like, well, wait a second. You're on the clearinghouse list for RTP on the website of those that are running this program. How is it not, you don't even know what it is when you're a signatory and a beneficiary and a clearinghouse for this RTP program? How is it that you don't understand what the program is? Like I want to just send some money to somebody that I owed for a loan, for example, you know? I'm like, oh, RTP, we don't know. Okay, let me just put you on hold and I'll get back here. So what I'd known on my personal research before anything about RTP was the FedNow wallet that everybody, if you're an American and you have a Social Security card, you already have a FedNow wallet issued to you, whether you know it or not. Every Social Security number has now a directly tied FedNow wallet to it. Now, the American dollar you're being paid right now in your paycheck, like you get $1 American in, that's a Treasury issued US dollar. Federal Reserve, like that's in that ecosystem. But central bank digital currency, FedNow account is not. It's a different type of a dollar. So you get paid in apples. And like the thing I needed to do was I had to convert my apples into oranges into the new FedNow dollar to then send it to a RTP account over at HSBC. That was a brain spinner for me there, that the US dollar you think's a dollar had to be converted to another different kind of a dollar. It's not active in America yet, but it's active outside the United States. So HSBC, excuse me, and those that are transferring money through London banks are using our native RTP protocols already with some digital dollar issuance to trade and send money instead of using wire transfer right now. But we in America we're not, excuse me, not open yet. We have the accounts each issued to us, but I don't know if they're, and this is what, when I showed me that article that Trump was saying there's going to be no CBDC, I'm like, well, wait, we all have FedNow accounts. So how is this magic going to work unless it's an existing protocol that already exists? And the Ripple US dollar would be the one that makes sense the most. So trying to actually activate my RTP account on my old FedNow account. I tried to activate it today. Earlier today, it was like 3:30 a.m. or 3:30 p.m. your time. Trying to activate this FedNow account wallet in my own bank so I could transfer money. Zero success after multiple hours on the phone. And I'm telling you, zero people knew what the hell I was talking about. I just know a little about crypto because, you know, I like to delve into it and I like to see how we're going to get thrown in the future, how we're going to pay for things. Because if you can understand how payments are going to work in the future, you can see the future a lot more clearly. Like imagine if you know credit cards, you know, because I grew up in that time when we didn't have, you had to be very special to even get credit cards, you know. There was no debit cards. And I grew up during that era on the transition, but imagine if you'd seen so clearly with a crystal ball, like absolute 100% clarity, that you would have seen the credit card market evolving and you could understand it enough to see where Visa would be today back in the 1970s. Like you would be so far ahead of the game, you would never need to work again. That's the same thing with all those cryptocurrency. Like it is the future. As much as Visa is today in 2025, as they saw it in 1975, the same, it will be utilized globally, the same level, but probably 10 times higher. So to understand how money is going to move and where your constriction point might be, you know, these are the things I look into. But I'm telling you that RTP wallet and FedActive, you know, my wallet's active. All of our wallets are active, but there's no way to transfer the current US dollar from the Treasury/Fed into this new whatever protocol. I think because once it got transferred, we could find somewhere where it transferred, which type of money or which protocol it flipped into, and then you would know 100% for sure which thing to buy on the crypto market that would be the one the United States government's going to move all of our pre-existing money with into the trillions of dollars. So, and again, this is what I was trying to get at this morning. Activate it for me. Activate it. I want to see what it turns into. I want to see everything. They will not let you do it currently.